We're going to go to body cameras next. Chief Geiseke.
Good evening or good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I believe I saw your picture in an Anoka-Hennepin school district monthly
That is
magazine
correct,
that we
Madam Chair.
get.
Yes. It was a slow news week. They were looking for a story.
Welcome back to the commission, and we look forward to your comments today. Go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Again, Eric Gieske, Burnsville Police Chief. My goal today is just give you a very high-level view of what we're doing for our body camera audits internally and how we're preparing to do for the external audit as well. Just to give you some quick background, we started body camera usage in the summer of 2010, so we've had them for just over 7 years. At that time, we started with a very small number of body cameras. It really took us 4.5 years before we got to what I would say full deployment, where all our officers in the front line have cameras today. It was a 4.5-year process, so we've had them out in the street full-time for 3 years now. Just a quick overview, we have 75 sworn officers. 57 currently are equipped with the cameras. Those, again, would be officers that I consider frontline officers that respond to calls, sergeants. We also have school resource officers, a community resource unit that wears them as well. So just to give you some idea, I don't wear a camera typically because it wouldn't make any sense, but investigators aren't assigned a camera as well. But just wanted to give you a sense that typically the people that do wear the body cameras are the ones out there each and every day responding to the calls. On average, we have about 22 cameras out on the street throughout the 24-hour period. What we've done for internal audits, just to make sure we're using the equipment the way we want it to be used, we do monthly reports, and what we do with those reports are basically we'll look at the number of calls an officer has handled over the course of a 30-day period, compare that to the number of videos, and make sure it appears to be consistent. We also ask that the supervisor of that officer also take a look at that information to make sure there's no discrepancy. So the goal is if we're giving you a camera, we want to make sure it's being used. We also run a report monthly on calls for service. And what we did with that was, just to give you an idea, Burnsville is a city, we handle somewhere between 45,000 to 50,000 calls a year for service, so it's somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 calls a month. As we were trying to look at this and figure out how we could make sure we were in compliance with our home policy and the state statute, we looked at the calls for service and we compared it to the number of videos that we create each month, and just to make sure it's fairly consistent. And again, not every type of police call is going to have a video attached to it, but just kind of a very high level. We took the raw numbers and kind of looked at that to see if it made sense to us, and it certainly does. We're also able to run monthly reports too about the actual cameras that are out there.
And Chief, real quickly, could you, for the benefit of the other members on the commission and those in the audience, could you tell us what your policy is on when an officer should turn their camera on? Because you stated that not every call is going to be recorded.
Correct. That's a good question, Madam Chair. Typically, what I will say is what we're discovering is the officers typically put the cameras on more than they're required to per policy. And the obvious times, and our policy is posted on our website, we're very transparent, you can get a copy of it. Anytime you're taking enforcement action, you're making traffic stops, you're arresting somebody, you're searching a vehicle, stopping somebody, we would require the officer to have that camera on. But our experience has been they're discovering, we discovered they're putting it on, turning it on more just in the event that something would happen they didn't anticipate. They don't want to be in a position they have to explain why the camera wasn't on. So they've really gone the other way to protect themselves and really to be transparent and gain trust from the community to show what they're doing out there. As I talked about the high-level view of just the calls for service and the type of things that we're doing, this slide, not to overwhelm you, but again, this is a report that we generate monthly. It goes to our city council. It gives you an example of the number of videos that we produce each month, the number of hours, and I'm not an IT person, gigabytes I can't explain technically, I just know that's quite a bit. That's on there as well. And I think to simplify it, when you look at the bottom portion, average per day, the number of videos we upload per day, it shows you we're using our cameras a fair amount. And I think that's a good thing in today's environment. We're actually, if you look at the number or the hours of video uploaded per day, it's running almost 24 hours a day on average. And again, that's just a snapshot of the gigabytes per day. Again, what I just showed, this is a spreadsheet of the entire year. So as we go through our calls for service, it varies month to month. Typically, calls for service might get higher in a given month for a number of reasons. We're again looking at consistency to make sure the calls for service are are being reflected in the number of videos we produce. And this next slide, these are the type of calls where you typically would not have a camera activated. 911 hang-up call where you get canceled or those types of things. Administrative calls that we create a case file for. An example of that would be maybe a gun permit. False alarms. If we're out in the community doing community engagement or community-oriented policing, we wouldn't necessarily have the camera on. Extra patrol or follow-up to the case. So there's a significant number of calls that we go to we wouldn't require the camera to be on. I'd also ask you to consider the fact that nowadays we'll have multiple cameras running on a call, so that can affect the numbers as well. But this is just to give you somewhat of a high-level overview. Now this slide here, not to overwhelm you with information, but I do want to show that this shows that we are in compliance with the statute. It's a sample right in front of you. It's a lot to digest, but if you simplify it, you really look at the top portion, the applicable classification of the data. It shows that that's part of the requirement statute. We're documenting what the classification of that video is, the date and time it was captured and recorded, and whether or not it was destroyed or deleted is that next section. So it really kind of shows we can drill down really deep and kind of show that we're doing what we need to be doing with the information and deleting it when we need to delete it, and that the classification is correct and proper. One of the requirements of the statute too is whenever you use force resulting in great bodily harm or death, that's public data. And if you look about halfway down the slide here, it's highlighted in red. We unfortunately had an officer involved shooting last year resulting in a death, and that is a public redacted version that's available to the public. It shows that it's in our system, and you'll note there, that's the only one that doesn't have a deletion date, because we're required to keep that permanently. So I just wanted to have this available so you knew when we were deleting things, when we were capturing information, and this is one example of a report that we can actually create to do that. And also, anytime somebody goes into the system under a policy to look at a video, they're required to put a note in there as to why they're watching the video. And there's a lot of obvious reasons for that and good reasons to make sure we're accessing the information like we should and we're expected to do. And on the far right, you'll see notes in there. Those are two examples where one of the reports was reviewed by a supervisor, review for aggression resistance report. All our use of force incidents, they are reviewed by the supervisors. So they go in, they look at the situation to make sure it was used properly, and they'll put a document and note in there that they went in and looked at it. And just below that is another basic example. Somebody went in to look at their video because they may have not categorized it correctly or labeled it correctly. But typically you'll find that officers, unless they're preparing for court or there's some other reason, are not necessarily going in to review their own videos just because it's very time consuming.
Chief, there's no way we can see the fine detail on that.
Yes.
Would you provide your PowerPoint to the members?
Absolutely.
That'd be
Yeah.
really helpful. And that was what you answered. One of my questions was, are you using some of this video for training purposes and for accountability? And it appears that you are to a certain extent. Is it just in use of force cases that those videos are sort of flagged and reviewed, or do you review randomly other video as well?
We review the videos if there's a need to, if we're notified of a question or concern, a complaint, or something we want clarification on, we'll review it. We don't randomly review them just basically because we don't have the resources or the time to do it. For training purposes, a lot of times we'll use them when things turn out well. If somebody's been able to talk somebody out of a situation or help somebody, we'll use those videos as training video. We have one recently where 3 of our officers responded to a suicidal male on one of our bridges, and we captured that on video. They were able to basically save the guy's life, take him off the bridge, and we use that as a training tool to show other officers kind of how they were able to help this guy stay alive. So those are the situations and examples where we would use that in a training setting and then document that as well. The other thing I'd like to just point out as well, we're doing this internally to make sure we can show that we're in compliance with what the statute requires, but also I've checked with our city and our county attorney just to make sure we haven't had any situations where we've had a court case that the officers were there, we didn't have camera available. So I think that's a pretty powerful statement to say we're out there, we're using them, and they're being used for the purposes of prosecuting criminal cases. And I've checked with both city and county attorney recently, and they said we've had a good track record with that, so.
And on the substantial bodily harm piece, do you consider when someone is being tased, does it, in your opinion, meet that threshold?
That's a good question. I know there's case law out there that would say just the mere use of a taser wouldn't necessarily meet that threshold. I think you need to look at each individual tasing situation and determine whether or not that it fits the category. So I think there are some situations where the use of a taser may result in substantial bodily harm, and then that would in fact be public data.
Because I have a friend that recently went through training to be a law enforcement officer in Wisconsin, and they had to tase one another for part of their training. And she said, I literally thought I was going to die. And so I would think that would fall to substantial bodily harm in some way. And I understand that, I mean, the taser itself can leave marks on a person's body. So I just was curious as to how that's being understood. Senator Schoen.
Madam Chair,
I got Senator first.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
noticed that?
I just want to clarify, I've been tased, pepper sprayed, and gassed, and none of the times I actually thought I was going to die. So I just wanted to make sure that, and it's been multiple times.
That explains
Yeah.
a lot.
It's had an effect maybe that you
No,
don't realize.
so I mean, I want to make sure that, for the record, that is not the end goal of a taser.
All right.
With that, Madam Chair, members, I'll stand for any questions.
Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Chief, for coming down today. When we considered passing the body camera legislation, we heard a lot of concern about the bureaucratic requirements on the management of a police department and the cost for storage. Has that been a major issue for your department?
Well, I can only speak for Burnsville, Madam Chair, Senator. It hasn't been a major issue just because, fortunately for us, when we started this, we got support from our city council, and they were on board with it. So the costs have increased slightly over the years as we've deployed more cameras, but we've built it into our budget over the last 7 years. I think we've seen the return on the investment, and so it's just one more piece of our budget that we budget for, and we're glad that we do. I'm very thankful that we have that and support to do it, because it's really important, I believe.
One other issue that we discussed was possible complaints by other people that would be in the field of view of the camera, but not necessarily a subject of the police action. Has there been any complaints by those people in the background? Are they concerned that they're on film? Do they want to be blotted out in some way on the film? Have you heard any complaints from anybody?
Chief Keiske.
Madam Chair and Senator Limmer, actually, no, that hasn't been an issue with us, that people have complained about being in the video, if that's what you're asking. It hasn't been a problem.
One of the selling points that the legislature was told when the departments wanted to implement body cameras was for transparency purposes. And, I mean, we all know I lobbied hard to make more of this information public. And so in what regard, or to what extent, is the use of body cameras really helping your department or others that you've heard of to be transparent when only the cases where there's substantial bodily harm are made public?
Well, Madam Chair, that's a good question. Typically, our experience has been people that if they have a concern about officer conduct or the force that we've used or how we've handled the call, they are typically the subject of the data, so they can come in and we on a regular basis offer the opportunity to come in and review the video, and a lot of people take us up on it. And in that respect, it's been very helpful. It's people that have a concern about the situation have access to it if they were in the video. And there's been a few situations where they want access to a video and subjects in the video. We haven't been given consent, so we just simply redact them, and you can still see the individual who's concerned about a specific incident or call, if that makes sense to you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for members? Oh. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chief, I said I was going to ask this of other law enforcement officers that came forward, but this technology, have you considered any potential disparate impacts as it applies to communities of color and how this technology is deployed? For example, do you have any concern that now we have more images of African Americans, far higher percentage than how they're represented in the population at large, and what kind of disparate impact that may have on the community as a whole?
Chief Geisky.
Madam Chair, Representative Lesh, that's a good question. I haven't given that a lot of consideration because we respond to the calls that we're dispatched to, and as far as engagement with the community in different contexts we have, it's a variety. I can't say that I've necessarily thought of that. It's a good question. I'd have to give that some more thought and more research, but that's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for you at this time.
Well, Madam Chair,
Representative Lesh.
and thank you, Chief. I don't have a good answer for it either, how to resolve it. But I do know that based on case law, disparate impact and its effects are very real. Like the courts say, no, if the effect of you being treated differently, in other words, if we're collecting mass amounts of data against one population compared to, say, the white population, that is absolutely a legal issue. On the other hand, police are going to say, we don't pick. We respond to calls. What do you want us to do? Like shut off our camera when we see, a different race. So I'm not saying I have the answer to it, but I'm just saying, like, in the future, I think it's something that this committee is going to have to be dealing with, because I think the courts will deal with it. So thank you.
Chief Geisky, I had a couple other questions, and I'm going to ask this on a lot of these technologies that we're going to be talking about today. Does your department use body cameras that allow live streaming?
Currently, we do not.
Are you looking at that?
Madam Chair, at this time, no, we're not looking at that. I realize it's potentially available to us. It might be something we would consider in a tactical type of situation or a high-risk warrant using a SWAT team, something of that nature, but it's nothing we've discussed recently or that I have a immediate or believe that our department has a need for it at this time.
Okay, and facial recognition technology on the camera itself?
Madam Chair, I know one of the challenges I think we face, and in Burnsville, I know many departments do as well, what's marketed and the technology that's available out there isn't something we can always keep up with. So even though it's available, we're not necessarily using it at this time. Quite frankly, sometimes we have enough challenges using the tools that we have and making sure we're using them to their capacity. So as they come out with new stuff, we review it if it makes sense. I know that there's a variety of software available, so we're cautious about what we use, and what we have now works, so we don't necessarily have a need, at least our department, based on the volume and the size of the requests and the videos that we have.
And I'm assuming this doesn't apply to you, but I understand there's technology out there that can remotely activate a body camera. Are you using
Madam
that?
Chair, that's a good question. Again, I think it changes so much. There's a variety of cameras out there now, and I can only speak to the product we use. When we started in 2010, there was one model. Now there's a variety of models, and I do believe some of those can be activated when squad car lights are put on or remotely, but I can't speak specifically about it because our system currently does not use any of that.
Okay. And I read an article recently, and I think I had it put in members' packets, about one particular department. No, it's not St. Paul, but maybe it's Maple.
Looking at the Guardian article, Madam Chair?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's about a case study that one of the,
Washington County.
Washington County, thank you. Washington County, they deployed, they're using smartphone cameras. They gave all of their officers smartphones and are using the entire smartphone, I guess, to, obviously, they're turning the cameras on to be used as body cameras, but they're, as we all know, with smartphones, there's so many other capabilities that those phones have. And So, and I know this is not your your specific department, but I would have concerns with that. I would think that, are those officers leaving those phones at the department when they leave? Are they only allowed to use them during their shifts? I would think that it would be really easy to download that, any video from that onto to their own personal device. I just see, a lot of issues with that, and I don't know if you have a response to the use of that technology or not. I'll let you, I guess, comment if you have any.
Madam Chair, I'm not familiar with that particular model or that technology. I know it does exist. I would just say, like most departments, you need policy in place to address those issues of misuse. You and I have talked about this before. I added a special section to our policy just to reflect on how clear that needs to be. And I would guess most other departments, whether it's Washington County or whatever, they're required to have a policy, and it better be a good policy that covers that. Because the misuse of any of this technology, we understand, can be devastating to the law enforcement profession and take us backwards, and we don't want that. So I think law enforcement executives are very aware of that, concerned about it, and try to put as many systems in place, policy, training, and oversight to avoid the concern that you have. But I understand the concern, and I can't sit here today and tell you I know everything about it, but I think it's a legitimate concern to have, and it's a very good question to ask. And I would imagine most police chiefs would be in a similar situation, have your things in a good, solid place so to prevent that from happening. And if it does happen, then you need to deal with it.
Right. Any other member questions for the chief? Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chief, so back to the conversation regarding facial recognition technology. So you commented that you currently don't see you have a need for it or are even exploring the use of that in the future. But are you aware, has it been marketed to you as an option that's even available by the vendor at this time?
Chief Geiske.
Yep, Madam Chair, Representative. Yes, like I mentioned before, it's hard sometimes to keep up with all the changes. But yes, I'm aware it's available, that the product that are out there, whether it's a Taser or whatever company has it, I know it's out there at the time and it's being marketed. Again, down the road, we may look at it. At this time, we're currently not using it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Anyone else? Thank you very,
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Chief, in your answering these questions, you stated quite a few times that you knew of other new technologies, new optional versions of equipment. Legislators don't get forwarded that type of information. Do you have any resources that you could tell us about that would provide us that type of information?
Chief Geiske.
Madam Chair, Senator, a lot of my information comes through the mail that I don't even try to, don't ask for it, just they get your name on a mailing list. So a lot of it's I can't keep up with it. The internet mailings, there's a lot of magazines, periodicals, there's a lot of information available out there. I'm not a techie guy, I don't really track a lot of that, but I know it's out there and it's available to research.
Okay. All right.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate
Madam
it.
Chair, members.